so we don't interrupt our speaker. I'd appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. I am Jeff Patton. I'm the Vice President for the Central Pennsylvania World War II Roundtable. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We're going to start the evening as always, like we always do, and that's by standing as able and joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please take your seats. It's a little blustery out there today, isn't it? But somebody told me it's going to be 70 degrees this week, so maybe winter's over. Let's see. So we want to start, again, like we always do, and recognize our veterans. First of all, with our World War II veterans. If you can stand and raise your hand. I see Irva, Paul. And all of our other veterans, which I know we have several of in the room. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you very much for your service. Fundraising efforts, as always, we're a nonprofit, as you know, so we do the helmet committee in the back of the room when you exit. If you want to put a donation in the helmet, the World War II helmet, we sell the books and the mugs outside the table, and we'll always take a donation if you're willing to give. So for this day in World War II history, in 1944, Allied bombers hit Berlin for the first time in the war. And a couple upcoming events we want to tell you about before we get started. Several things going on this weekend. First of all, so Saturday, March 8th, in 2 days, the AHAC, Army Heritage and Education Center, is having a book sale, and that goes from 10 till 4:30, just one day, 10 to 4:30. They do that about every 3 or 4 months. And a lot of good books at a very good price. So if you have time to do that, I'd encourage you to do so. There's also Women's History Month on March 8th, so this Saturday as well, all day long at the World War II American Experience down in Gettysburg. So they have a full lineup of programs, including events going in the evening. You can take a look at that. And then finally, next week, on Friday, March 14th, Dr. Craig Simons, who is very good historian, obviously has been to our program before. He's going to be at the Civil War Roundtable talking about the Civil War, but obviously a noted historian, so we want to make sure that you're aware of that. But that's the Civil War Roundtable Friday night in Harrisburg. So those are some upcoming events. Also, kind of a last call for our trip to Europe coming up it's actually in about a month, just over a month. So we're going to focus on Operation Market Garden. We're going to spend a day studying the 101st Airborne, a day on the 82nd, and a day on the 1st Airborne. For the battle, we're going to go to Cologne. We're going to see the Remagen Bridge, go to Nordhausen concentration camp, as well as the Buchenwald concentration camp, and tour the Merker salt mine, spend a day at Potsdam, and then finish off in Berlin. 12-day trip. Goes from 26 April to 8 May. Information, sign up, and cost, all that information is outside on a flyer. So if you're interested or you think anybody might be interested, be sure and grab a flyer or come talk to me if you have any questions. As you know, we had a adjustment to our schedule based on unforeseen events, and so we're very happy to move and that Mr. Frank Steller would move his schedule up because he was originally going to be our April speaker, and he made time in his schedule to visit us a month early in March. So I will introduce you, sir, and I'll hand it over to Tyler to ask you a few questions about your experience. So Frank Steller was born in Lebanon, Pennsylvania in 1924. He worked in the textile printing and finishing company when he was drafted into the military in 1943. After basic training in Greensburg, North Carolina, he was sent to England and assigned to a unit that assisted constructing wartime airstrips in farmers' fields across Europe for the Army Air Corps. Around that time, in 1944, the military set up an infantry training camp in England, and Frank got orders to go to that camp in 1945, but the war ended before he was able to be sent back to the front lines. When Frank came back from the war in 1946, he got a job with the Bethlehem Steel and the Cornwall ore mines and eventually became a head miner. He worked for 26 years in underground mines and 1 year in the open pit before the mines closed. Frank retired from the mines and got a job as a state highway system in 1973, retiring in 1986 at the age of 62. He's now a full-time grandfather and the oldest member of the Lebanon YMCA. Thank you for joining us tonight. Over to you, Tyler.
Hello? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Tyler. I've seen most of you here before. I interview World War II veterans, and one of the veterans I've become very close with is Mr. Frank. So today I'll be just kind of doing a Q&A type of format to get you Frank's story, okay? All right. So, Mr. Frank, why don't you tell them where and when were you born?
I was born in Lebanon in 1924, September the 5th.
And tell them what your childhood was like. What did you do when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, it was kind of pretty rough. And when we were kids, well, we played ball just like anybody else did, and that. And
Why don't you talk about the Great Depression?
well, the Great Depression, it was kind of pretty rough. My dad had 10 children, and things were pretty hard. If it wasn't for the two oldest girls, they got a job in a shirt factory, and they helped out a lot. That helped out a lot. And the meals we had were all one-pot meals, just about. And like I said, it was rough.
So talk about the 33, yeah. Oh, sorry. Talk about the 33 cents, what you had to do, because your mom passed away, so talk about that.
My job.
Yeah, and your mom, how she passed away.
Oh, my mother passed away when I was 10 years old. She was 42 years old, and my dad had to take care of all of us, and it was pretty rough for him.
And tell them about your job.
Oh, I got a job in they call it a dye factory, but actually what we did there, we printed the tablecloths, and I got a job there, and my job was, the first job I got in there was washing the buckets of dye out. I was washing them out, and then I got to go pinning to lay the cloth down so they can print the designs on the tablecloths and tea towels that we did.
And how much did you make?
33.5 cents an hour. That half cents was pretty important then.
And the 33.5 cents went towards your family.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And you said you left school early, correct?
Right. I left school early to get this job. My brother was in there working, and he got me the job in there.
Okay. So, backtrack a little bit. Talk about Pearl Harbor, right? So Pearl Harbor happened in 1941, so you would have been 17,
Yeah.
okay? Do you remember hearing about it?
Oh, yes. I think everybody heard about that. Yeah.
How did you hear about it? How did you hear about it?
On the radio.
And what was your reaction?
I thought it was terrible.
Yeah. So fast forward back, you had a job, you were making 33.5 cents, right? 1943, you were drafted, right?
Right.
So talk about, how they drafted you. How did you find out?
Well, there was 16 of us from Lebanon at one time. They got us. We had to go take our examination and that. And then when they says, what branch of service would you like? So I didn't know anything about what kind of services we had. So I said, I'll go in the Army. So they put me in the Army Air Corps. And then I went to Greensboro, North Carolina for Air Corps training.
And tell them what Air Force and what squadron you were in.
Oh, we were in the 9th Air Force.
And which squadron? Squadron?
We were the 302nd Aerodrome Squadron. What we did was, after the infantry went through, they set up an airstrip in a farmer's field so the fighter planes could be close to the front. And
That's good. Good. Talk about basic training. What did you have to do in North Carolina?
well, we learned us to march, and of course on the rifle range, we learned to shoot.
The rifle and the bazooka, right?
The what?
Talk about the different weapons you used.
Oh, that was when I was in the infantry.
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. So talk about when you crossed the ocean, right?
Oh,
Were you seasick?
when after the infantry went through, why our equipment was already in France, and we flew over to France in C-47. It was C-47, and on the way, the guy sitting in front of me, he got sick, and he started throwing up in his helmet, and I don't know whether the weather was bad or not, but as we were flying over the channel, the planes all of a sudden dropped, and they said it's an air pocket. It was more than an air pocket to me. It really went down, and it came up again, and you know what I mean.
So I want to tell you a quick story about what Frank just said. So in, I think it was August, he flew over to France across the English Channel. That was 81 years ago, and he hasn't flown in an airplane since. So I called him about 2 months ago, and I said, I have an opportunity to take you to the World War II Museum in New Orleans, but that requires to take an airplane. So I thought he would say no. And he called me like 20 minutes later, and he was like, okay, I'll go. I was shocked. So about 2 months ago, he was in an airplane for the first time in 81 years, which is crazy. So talk about crossing the Atlantic Ocean when you got to England. Were you seasick on the ship?
Yeah, I got seasick one time when we were in the middle of the ocean. I got sick out of that, throwing up overboard. You know, it was rough then.
Mm. And you landed in England, right?
No,
Or Scotland.
Glasgow, Scotland.
That's right.
We got off in Glasgow, Scotland, and then from there we went into England by train, and we were at different places stationed in England.
So one of the stories you told me was on June 6th, 1944, when D-Day happened. You woke up early in the morning. Describe what you saw.
Yeah, well, actually, we knew it before it happened. Because they loaded the planes with bombs and everything that night. They loaded everything, and in the morning, when I got up, I seen all these planes. There was nothing but planes in the sky. No matter where you looked, there were planes. There were that many planes going over for the invasion, you know.
And you said how loud it was.
Oh yeah, the motors and that, they were really loud.
And so fast forward to August, so about 2 months after D-Day, you took the C-47 over the channel into France. Where did you land?
We landed on the other side of Paris at an airfield there, and we were supposed to pitch our tents, and I seen this in the distance. I seen this German Messerschmitt bomber was shot down. It was there. So I went over to there and I slept in there overnight in this bomber.
So Frank, like you just said, he was a little too lazy to pitch his tent on the first night, so he decided to sleep in the German Messerschmitt his first night in France. So talk about when you got over there, it started to get cold, right? You talked about
Yes.
the weather. So tell them what it was like when it started getting cold out.
Well, we were living in tents. There were about 5 or 6 can sleep in the tent, and we had it was winter time, and we had pot-belly stoves in the tent, and they rationed the coal. And you couldn't burn it to keep warm because you wouldn't have no coal then, if you burn it the regular heat, And we get up in the morning and have to go to the bathroom. There was about a foot of snow there. All you can do is just throw on your shoes and put your overcoat on and go to the place where you have to go to where the trench was.
So talk about your helmet. You used your helmet for things.
We used our helmet. We take the lining out. We use our helmet to wash ourselves with it. And that helmet, when you go eat, you use your helmet to sit on it so you can eat. You had no tables or nothing to eat. You ate, sit down on the ground or whatever it was to eat.
So one of the experiences that you saw at your airstrip that you guys helped build, you saw a plane blow up. Can you talk about that?
Oh, there was I think it was a P-47, and they had fragmentation bombs under the wings. These fragmentation bombs were maybe six in a bundle or so. And one P-47 come in on the land, and all of a sudden, when it hit, it jarred them fragmentation bombs loose, and they exploded, and the plane and everything, and the pilot and everything were gone. See, he couldn't release them bombs. It wouldn't release. Something was wrong with he released them, and I seen that when it exploded and killed him.
Could you talk? So I guarantee the question from the audience will be, how did you obtain all this war memorabilia? So talk about in France how you acquired the flags and the helmet and everything.
Well, we would get rations of once a week. You get a carton of cigarettes for 50 cents. A carton of cigarettes for 50 cents. And with them cigarettes, I didn't smoke. Them cigarettes were better than money. You could do a lot with cigarettes that money couldn't do. But, you know, they liked the cigarettes we had. The Lucky Strikes, Camels, Chesterfield, and later on sometime there was, they were called Wings. They were a little bit longer than the regular cigarette wings. But like I say, I got a lot of that stuff there with cigarettes.
The French really like the cigarettes. The French.
They French. And when we were there in France, what to call it? The people used to come up to on the Sunday used to come up to visit us, and they would just walk in the tents like if it was their tent. They didn't say, "Can we come in?" or anything. No, they just walked right in there, and they did that just about every Sunday. They'd come up.
So what Frank just said about the cigarettes, how he said he didn't smoke in the service, that is true, but when he was 7, like when he was this big, he started smoking, and when he was 12, he quit smoking, which is crazy. My 12-year-old cousin plays video games and doesn't smoke, so it's crazy. Frank, one story that you missed talking about is when you were in England, right? Talk about what you and your friend saw walking across the street. Tell them that story. The naughty story, the bad story.
What?
The naughty story.
Oh, in London?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you know, when we got into England, we had to exchange our money, you know. They went by pounds. And one pound was worth $4 in our money. And, you know, a private made more money than a British soldier, an officer. More money than an officer made. That's the way we got paid a lot better than what the British did. We could do more with our pay than the British could. They can go out maybe once or twice a night, a month, and we can go out a week.
Tell them the naughty part.
Well, see, maybe I better tell them how I got into the infantry.
You can tell them that. Tell them the girl story. They'll get it.
Well, I was going to come to that, but okay. Okay. We after our infantry training in England, I had infantry training there. But it was all over, you know. And we went into a hangar, and there was a general in there. He was giving them a big spiel about the war and everything, you know. And when he was done talking, he says, "Kill or be killed." A couple seconds went by, and he says, "You will kill." So the war was still on, and they gave us a pass to go to England, London. to go to London. And there was 4 of us when we were there, and we each we got a cab. 4 of us got a cab, and it cost us each £1. That's $4. It was 4 of us. And this guy, he gave us a tour of London. I'd say it was every bit of 3 hours. We seen everything there was to see in London. And then after that, why, we, me and another guy, we were on our own. And this guy, he was a couple of years older than me. He knew the ropes and everything, you know. And we went to a place called Piccadilly. It's a circus. And there was a place there, a lot of people go there, and there were benches around there and people would feed the pigeons. The pigeons would come and eat out of your hands, and they were just as tame as you can be. And then later on that evening, but me and this guy, we were walking along the sidewalks, you know, and then the homes there, they didn't have no porches sticking out over the front door or something like it there. There'd maybe a step or 2 to get into the house. And these prostitutes, they would sit on the steps there, and when you walk by, they'd say to you, "Hey, soldier, you want to have a good time?" And the guy that I was with says, "How much?" She says, £7. He says, "Lady, we don't want to buy it, we just want to rent it." And, well, later on, well, I don't want to say that.
Okay. It took him a little bit to get to that point. Talk about, I know we jumped forward a little bit, but in France, right? You remember at night you hear lots of artillery.
Oh yes, you can sleep some nights. The artillery was going on. It seemed like it was going on all night. I don't know, but that's what it seemed like.
And it was loud and it shook everything. And
it was loud. You couldn't sleep anyway.
Yeah. So you're in France, right? And then when the Battle of the Bulge happened, they lost a lot of men. And they basically said, "Okay, Frank, we're going to take you back to England, and we're going to give you..."
Well, what happened there, when the Battle of the Bulge was, a lot of infantrymen were killed or wounded, and they weren't coming over fast enough from the States. So our government set up an infantry training camp in England, and they went around to different outfits and picked a few from each outfit, and I was one to be picked to go to England for infantry training. Well, I said the rest of that before.
Tell them, what in training did you do? You used the bazooka? What else?
Well, in the infantry training, we learned to throw the hand grenades, bazooka, and of course the rifle. And they had us dig a trench where the tanks can go over you.
Yeah. Tell them the one story about the tank that drove over.
The what?
Remember you told me how the tank, it drove over a foxhole and it pushed the dirt in?
Yes, you wanted it narrow enough, that it can't push in when the tanks went over here.
And then at that point, you were assigned to the 36th Infantry Division.
Oh, yes. I wound up well, the war ended as I got back into France. As I got back to France. But I wound up in the 36th Division, which was the Texas Division. I was in there for about, I'd say about 4 months, till the 7th Army headquarters was getting ready to go to the Pacific. That wasn't over yet. So they were getting us to go over, and well, anyway, this was in Heidelberg, Germany. In Heidelberg, Germany, and they needed cooks. They needed cooks, so I was sent to Heidelberg to do cooking again, and when I got there, why somebody else got the position of cooking. So what they had me doing was clean the field range stoves. They were pretty big stoves, you know. They were run by gas, you know, and they wanted me to clean them up and they have them ready for the next gang of cooks to come in. And you'd have to wire brush them, you know, fill them up with fuel and that. And another thing we had to do was, me and another guy would have to go to the stockade, which wasn't too far, maybe about a block or two away from where the mess hall was. So we went down there and we got 20 prisoners of war and marched them up to the mess hall to do KP. Believe me, they liked that. And they gave me a prisoner to help me with my job, you know. I learned him how to do everything, and I had it made. And this guy, I'll never forget him. He was an elderly guy. He was Austrian, and his name was Alois Weinbachen, and you can see that they had the age already was up to get in their army.
Why don't you talk about, you spoke Pennsylvania Dutch, so like you could say, "Vanse hoeke blijven."
Well,
and what would you say back?
Kannst du Mucke vangen?
There you go.
Jawohl.
So you could speak Pennsylvania Dutch, and that helped you talk to the prisoners.
Well, I can talk some. You'll learn in that. But actually, my parents came from Hungary, and the place where they came from was now is Czechoslovakia. That's where they came from. My mother and dad met in this country. They met in this country. He didn't know her there, or she didn't know him here.
Why don't you talk about, you sort of hinted at it, how they were bringing people back to the States for the Pacific Theater. So tell them how you came back home.
On the way home.
Yeah, how did you come home?
We came home by it used to be the Kaiser's private yacht, then during World War I. And we came home in that boat, and there was a terrific storm out there. And the waves looked like mountains coming at you. And we had trouble with the rudder, and they had called for another ship to come. But in the meantime, I guess the Merchant Marines, they got it fixed or something like that. But it is terrible, that storm.
So when you came home, where did you go? Did you get discharged?
Oh, when I come home, I got to the Indian Time Gap. I got there. I slept. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I slept there, and when I got up, I was waiting to get my furlough. I had about 45 days coming to me, and so I was waiting and waiting, and I went into the office there at the Gap, and I told them, I only live here in Lebanon. It's only 11 miles away. So they wrote me out a 3-day pass, and I got a bus from there to go to Lebanon, and I walked into the house at 6 o'clock Christmas evening. I walked in the house there, and they were glad to see me after I was over there 2 years.
What was it like seeing your family? What was it like seeing your family?
Oh, it was like a surprise. That wasn't a surprise, you know. It was great.
So, you know, fast forward till now. In the introduction, they said you're the oldest member at the YMCA.
Oh yeah. When it was, but anyway, when it was my 100th birthday, the YMCA gave me a big party. I've been going to the YMCA for 57 years, and I was the oldest guy going to the Y.
So Frank goes to the gym about 3 days a week. So everyone out in the audience who keeps pushing off the gym, if a 100-year-old can go, you guys can go. And tell them you run on the track and everything.
Oh, what I do? Well, I walk 2 miles on the track. They have a track, has 3 lanes: walk, jog, and run. And I walk 2 miles, and then every 5 laps around, they have a stand there with handlebars on it. I get up there and I swing back. I can't go forward or I'd hit the wall. So I just swing backwards in that 20 times. I do that 4 times. I run around 1.5 times. I skip around once around the whole track. Skip.
So he gets a pretty good workout in. So how long were you married and how many children did you have?
I lived it all my life in Lebanon. I had 3 sons.
And how long were you married?
I was married for 71 years.
Are you, looking back to World War II, are you proud of your service?
What?
Are you proud of your service?
Well, I hope so.
If you had to do it all over again, would you do it?
Probably would. Probably would. It was tough sometimes, and that, but hey, you're doing it for your country.
Do you want to have the audience ask you some questions?
If they want to.
Okay.
If I could answer them.
If you guys have any questions for Mr. Frank.
Hi, Mr. Frank. I've always been curious. I was in the Navy, and we had carried everything in a sea bag
from command to command. But in the Army, it seems like you had a lot more and different uniforms, like dress uniform for civilian affairs going out in public. I'm wondering, were you issued like a C-check, what, a Foot Locker? And what about the guys that fought in combat, like the Battle of Bulge? After the war, they seem to have dressier uniforms. Were they provided fresh, or was there some kind of a depot that held on to all their stuff until they were ready for it?
Okay, so couple part question. Did you have a Foot Locker? Did you keep your stuff in?
Yes, we had a Foot Locker.
Okay. Now, if I understood his question correctly, after the Battle of the Bulge, the men got dressier uniforms. Did they keep some of their stuff in like a depot? How did that work, or do you not know?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Did I ask that question right? Yeah, okay. Is there any other questions for Frank? Yes.
Hi there, Mr. Frank. You said you were one of 10 children. Were you at the upper end, the lower end, in the middle?
So,
And did any of your siblings serve during World War II?
okay. Two-part question. So you were one of 10 kids.
Yes.
Where in that 10 did you fall? Middle, oldest, youngest?
Oh, about the middle.
Okay, what number were you?
Well, let's see. I was a sixth.
Second, so in the middle. And did any of your brothers serve in World War II?
Yes, I had a brother served in Europe.
Okay, and what did he do in World War II?
What did he do?
Yep.
I think he was a baker. They baked a lot of bread.
Okay, there you go. Is there any other questions for Frank?
I have a question real quick, Frank. You talked earlier about during the war, like when you were in Europe, in the 9th Air Force, you went from England and you went overseas to mainland Europe and followed the Air Force planes, Air Corps planes. And you told me, maybe you could tell more about this story, how you didn't just do cooking, you would help with the runways too, and you would help lay out those metal strips for the runways, kind of portable runways that the U.S. government would provide. Can you tell a bit more about that for the audience, maybe?
So his question is, talk about how you would set up the runway. You put that metal material down. Talk about that.
Yeah, but I didn't exactly help because I was a cook, you know. But I watched them and that. They're big rolls of mesh, wire mesh, and they just roll it out on there.
Okay.
And by the way, Eisenhower came in on that strip, so he could talk to the guys in the front.
And you saw Eisenhower?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, that
Can you tell what Eisenhower said real quick before the next question? Maybe that sounds really interesting. I didn't hear that earlier. What did he say?
What did Eisenhower say to you, or?
I didn't get too close to him.
How close were you?
Well, maybe I can see him, you know, walking out and that.
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't have time to talk to everybody.
Yes.
When you worked as a miner at Cornwall, what level below ground did you work at, the deepest level?
So as a miner at Cornwall, what was the deepest you went?
1,250 was a pump room, and they would pump it into another pump room down in the mines, and then they'd pump it out. They used to pump a million gallons a day out of there, and if it would be rainy couple of days, they'd be pumping 2 million.
So what was the lowest, like 1,250 feet?
1,225 were the pump room. That was the lowest.
Okay.
That was the end of the ore down there.
Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. Yes, sir.
Why did they take you to Scotland and then go to England by train?
So his question is, when you crossed the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean,
Yes.
and you landed in Scotland and then took a train down to England, why did you land in Scotland? Was there a specific reason?
Well, they were landing, yeah, I guess it was because they had to go somewhere where you can get off. A lot of them were getting off in England, you know, and that. They can't all get off at the same place.
So, from my perspective, I could be completely wrong, but I've interviewed a decent amount of, Army World War II vets, and when they crossed the ocean, a lot of them did land in Scotland and then took a train down to England. So it wasn't unique to Frank. A lot of World War II Army veterans, did very similar things, if that makes any sense. Yes.
I'm curious about the townspeople that came to your tents. Did they come to visit? Did they come to get supplies, or did they just, were they just friendly?
So the French people that came in your little setup of tents in France, right? Why did they come? Did they want food? Did they just want to be friendly?
I guess more or less friendly.
Okay. I guess they were thankful you guys were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answered your question. Oh, yep.
I actually live directly behind the Cornwall ore mines. I've always been interested in the history. If you were there in '73, then you were there when the mine was closed for good. And I was wondering, how did you feel about that when they shut down the mine? And how did you feel about working there? Did you enjoy it or
Okay.
not?
So his question was about the mine that you worked in. He said it closed in '73. Were you there when it closed?
Yes, I was there. Last year, I drove truck in the open pit, and so we did about a week before. We were dumping ground all around the open pit, so to keep the people away from there.
Were you sad when it closed?
Yes, I like that. I would like to finish, get my service for pension.
Did you do anything after the mine? Did you work anywhere else?
Yes, I worked for PennDOT.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
I worked 13 years for PennDOT.
Okay.
I had 29 years with Bethlehem Steel's Cornwall Iron Ore Mines.
Okay. All right. Is there any other?
I think the people would be interested in knowing the vacation you got there. It was quite acceptable.
The
The
what?
amount of vacation
Oh.
that he got over the years at the mines.
The vacation you got at the mines?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
But you had so much time working at for Bethlehem Steel. You got 13 weeks vacation. 13 weeks vacation. I used 10 of them to go on a trip. I bought a camper, and the three boys and my wife and I, we never had a trailer on the back of the car or anything, So we took out and on our way to California with this trailer, and if we stopped at a place and we liked it, we stayed another day or two. We had no place to be at a certain time. We just went on our own, and that's the way we went.
Yes.
Frank, were you involved in reunions with your unit, or did you get together with the comrades that you met while you were in France and in England?
So, you weren't ever involved in, veteran reunions or anything, right?
No, I wasn't involved in it, but I went to all of them.
Okay. So you went to all the reunions then?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is it. Is there any
Any final questions?
Mr. Frank, you said that when you went over to France, you flew in. You had to go back for your infantry training. I assume they put you on some sort of ship, and do you know what type of ship that was?
So you flew over to France, but to go back to England to get your infantry, you were on a ship.
Right,
What-
English ship, an English
What
ship.
what did it look like?
It's hard to say. All I can know, you can smell the difference in the food. They ate a lot of mutton.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Is there any other questions for Frank?
I have one last question, I think, before we finish. You built more than one airfield when you were in France? Were you at one location, or did you move to multiple locations? And do you know what towns those were near?
So in France, and you talked about the airstrip that you
Yeah.
built. Did you build multiple airstrips? And if you did, what towns were they in?
Oh, there was only one strip.
Okay. And what was the town?
There was one called Ozavalier,
Okay.
and the other one was Bougneyville,
Okay. So there were two.
too.
Okay.
We were in between them.
Okay. So hopefully that. Yeah.
And by the way, they had no kind of toilets, nothing. The women, you see them a lot along the stream, washing the snow on the ground, washing their clothes in that stream.
Okay.
And they were beating it on the rocks, their clothes.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Is there any other questions?
By the way, I didn't tell you that, I don't know if any of you know it, but in England, they had a small burner. It was hooked onto your car, and they burned chips of wood, and somehow that would run your car.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody ever heard of that, but I already seen it on television. It was called the Martin Men, and they built one in the back of their truck to run their motor.
So Frank has a habit of staying up really late and watching videos of people build cabins. That's just something.
And the buses had trailers with one of those burners on.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Maybe these people would like to know if you had a girlfriend over there in Germany.
Your German girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell him.
Did you have a girlfriend?
Yes, I had a German girlfriend. Matter of fact, one Sunday, she took me up in the mountains. In the top of the mountain, it was a castle. A castle was up there, and we went up on cable cars. We went up, and when we got up there, we went into this castle, and in this castle was a wine barrel, and that wine barrel, 12 couples could dance on top of that wine barrel at the same time. And the wine barrel was only ever filled one time, but they put wine in it other years, but only filled one time. And I have that in my pocket, the picture of it.
So Frank had a good time with his German girlfriend.
Was that in Heidelberg?
Heidelberg?
Heidelberg, Germany.
Yeah.
By the way, they didn't bomb that city because there's nothing but universities there. Matter of fact, we slept in one of the dorms, and had the mess hall in one of them.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Frank?
Chris, over to you, I think.
Okay, I'm going to present the speaker gifts.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to say thanks to Frank and Tyler and also Brian. We have a small gift, our speaker gift. We normally give our coffee mug, which is a memento you have hopefully for many years that has our logo on there. And so you can enjoy it for coffee and every morning. I know Brian, your son said he likes coffee in the morning every morning, Brian. So thanks for Brian for driving his father here tonight. Brian's over here. And also thanks for Tyler for coming to help ask all these questions of Frank. They know each other very well for years now, Frank and Tyler. And thanks so much, Frank, for revealing to us so much about the war and what you guys went through. And day by day, I mean, for me, I enjoy a lot of the everyday life type stuff because you talked about, using your helmet if you're going to shave or cook stuff in or sit on for your meals and stuff. I even find stuff like that interesting, really, and of course, all the other war stories as well. But I really appreciate it because also thanks to you guys for moving up 1 month because we had a speaker cancellation for March and the veteran couldn't help it because of health reasons, but we're happy that Frank, Brian, and Tyler were able to work their schedule to change it by 1 month forward to come in for us today. And I also want to, of course, thank all of you for being here. And you're a nice crowd. We have a good number of people tonight. Brave the cold, and came anyway. Really windy tonight, as Jeff said earlier. Now we do have our our helmet committee gentlemen in the back. One guy just waved the helmet there. And they'll be very happy to accept any donations that you have. Now you're not required to, obviously, but we do really appreciate it if you can, and whatever amount you can feel comfortable with if you want to contribute towards our cause, because we do have expenses now, not so much tonight, but sometimes we have to pay for hotels for speakers, not tonight, but in some cases, or other things we have on a monthly basis we have to pay for, and we do appreciate your help when you can. And so we'll see you next month, and please feel free to come up and see the speaker, shake his hand, talk to a World War II veteran, and he has a nice collection of military items from the war he brought back, and please take a look at those, and you can ask him any questions you want. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Thank you.